Hello and
Seems
welcome
like
to another weekly session which we do at Acknowledger. And I'm Abhishek. I'm one of the founders of Acknowledger. Usually, this session is done by Yash, but today he's not here, so I'll be taking care of this. And today I have Russell with me. Hi, Russell. Welcome on the session.
hello there.
Great. So guys, today's topic is very important, and which me and Russell were just discussing before we started this call is that how Web3 is getting a lot of attention from gamers, from Web2 gamers. So before we start the whole session, Russell, why don't you tell us about yourself, what you do, what you're doing currently, and what has been your background till now?
Okay, so I'm Russell Bryant. I'm the founder at 8-Bit Arcade. We're a startup sort of Web2, Web3 gaming platform and an incubator for indie games in the Web3 and Web2 space. So we'll have a collection library of games on our platform. We're looking to launch towards the end of this year. So we'll have some licensed games and then we'll have an arcade for our indie game developers as well, where they'll be able to have beta and alpha version of their games tested. Our community can give them some feedback and we can help incubate them, basically. It's great for sort of indie gamers or indie game developers that aren't familiar with the Web3 space. So we can basically help them with onboarding, blockchain integration, also getting access to partners out there, getting them into the market, obviously give them access to sort of Web3, a gaming community who can actually test their games, give them some live feedback. So it's a great sort of go-to starting place for Web2 games wanting to get into the Web3 space. Obviously, we'll have a mobile app as well that run alongside our web-based platform. We've got quite a few clever little features in there, one of them being that you'll be able to get your games tested on the mobile app as well. So that's great for game developers who haven't got the funds to develop their own app. They can come and use ours basically and piggyback on us. We'll also have a highlight reel in there as well. So people playing through the mobile app will have like a 15-second highlight reel of their best moments, and they can share that on their social media accounts, TikTok and YouTube Shorts. And that's going to be great for sort of getting out there and getting market access and showcasing people their games, whether they're in an early stage of development or whether they're ready to go to market. So we will have those indie games on our platform as well that have a finished product and they'll want to build on their community, but also cross-pollinate with other games. So if you can imagine having 10 different sort of indie games on our platform that are ready to market, and they've all got a few thousand sort of user base in their communities, effectively they're getting access to each another's communities and they're cross-pollinating and they're playing each other's games, and we could have competitions against each other. So it's a great sort of community atmosphere and participation, and that's kind of what a lot of the Web3 is all about. We all sort of help each other out. We're not strictly competing against each other and see ourselves as just competitors. We're providing a platform where all these people come together and help each other out, really, and just enjoy gaming. I think one of the biggest obstacles we've had or experienced in the Web3 space is a new adoption from traditional gamers. And that's one of the biggest problems that we need to overcome now, I think, in this space. We need to bring in new users and not just continuously recycling the same 5% of gamers that are in the Web3 gaming space. So that's kind of what we're doing. We want to sort of break those boundaries down and sort of be the future of where the gaming industry is going.
Amazing. And Russell, have you been also a gamer, and you know what you used to do before this whole gaming ecosystem? What has been your background?
Okay, so you can probably tell I'm not a young chicken anymore. I'm 40 years of age, and I sort of grew up in the 80s and 90s, and arcades were obviously very popular, as you can see behind me. Traditional arcade machines are very popular, and I remember going into those and putting, your pennies in the machines and your quarters in the machines, and you used to get credits. And you used to get certain lives with the credits and play all sorts of games. So with Pac-Man, Mortal Kombat was very popular in the arcades. Street Fighter, Space Invaders was probably one of the bigger sort of first ones that came out in the arcade sort of scene. So all the sort of Atari games, and then the consoles started to come about in the 90s, and I started playing the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. And I didn't actually have the money to play or have one. So my neighbor got one for Christmas. And I remember I used to spend endless days going around his, usually either on a Wednesday evening or weekends, and we used to literally play Mario. What was that? And quite a few of the games that he had at the time, and it's great memories, and that was kind of sociable in a certain way because you were getting together in a room with your mates and playing. I also had the Sega Mega Drive. I think my first purchase console wise was the Game Boy Pocket, I had that. I was playing Tetris on that. I was playing Zelda on it as well, which was a great game. So I have very fond memories of those as a kid. And then obviously growing up after those initial consoles sort of came out, the industry was rapidly changing, and obviously had the advent of the PlayStation was huge. That revolutionized the space. And then the Xbox came along. And then I think what we ended up seeing was the gaming industry sort of became less sociable. And then suddenly they found new business models and started to take their games onto the web. And then you basically had people who are interacting, doing competition tournaments online, and that brought back a social aspect to it. So effectively, we've gone from the arcades, which I used to experience as a kid, where people used to come along and they all used to play in a line together on the arcades, and it used to be very sociable. And then people used to start playing in their bedrooms with the advent of the consoles, and it became less sociable. And then what we've got now is we've come a little bit full circle. Everybody's playing online. They're all talking to each other. And we've got this lovely thing that's down the road, which is the metaverse. And I think that's only going to make it even more community-based, or sort of gaming certainly community-based. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I'm very optimistic about the gaming industry and what it's got to offer. And I think it will start to sort of spread out, not just into gaming, but into education as well. So you'll start seeing educational sort of onboarding gaming as well. So that's really interesting. And then obviously with the metaverse, there's all sorts of endless possibilities there. So that's kind of my background in gaming. My passion is all about retro games, obviously being from my generation, but I do love any games, even the modern style games, as long as there's sort of like a community sort of feel to the games and people enjoy playing them. That's what it's all about. It's got to bring joy to the end user. And as long as it does that, it's a great game.
Right. I really love the analogy, Russell, is that probably in 80s when we all used to go out and people used to hang out together and there was a specific game time. So, every day you used to go out, either you go out in a playground or you go and play games. And now that thing is coming back in a full circle when you are, although you're not meeting these people uh, physically, but at least virtually you are interacting with them. And I think gaming is all about building that sort of community. And although it's a single player game, but you play with the community and that's how you enjoy. And you also spoke about metaverse and then the whole gaming, and the whole topic is all about the process of creating a Web3 game. So how does this function? I am not a gamer. I used to play games, but I will not call myself as a gamer. So for somebody who's a non-gamer, why do you think it's a huge opportunity? Why do you think it's a huge business opportunity, and how it is going to pan out from here?
Well, the way I look at it is look at the amount of people on social media now that aren't gamers. So people that use Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I see the next evolution of social media being in the gaming industry, or being very much part of the gaming industry. So if you think right now the amount of time you're spending on social media and how it could be better, think of it being more interactive. Think of your social media. So you surfing your Instagram and your Facebook, instead of you just sliding through a screen with your finger, you can actually talk to the person that's put that post on. You can actually be in the same space as them. And all of a sudden that brings a new dimension to social media. So social media won't just be a 2-dimension anymore. It will become 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional. And it would be great for the advertising companies out there that make a lot of money out of social media now. So a lot of them are starting to get into this metaverse space as well. And I think the gaming industry will be one of the pioneers of that space, and already is showing to be. So kind of what I'm trying to say is that people that are on social media will be the perfect sort of customer base to be coming into this new Web3 sort of gaming space as well. So there's a lot of traction there. And I think there's a lot of crossovers. They will get a much better experience on their social medias if they're in this metaverse sort of gaming space. So that's kind of my answer.
Correct. So and metaverse. I mean, obviously we saw Apple launching its own headset now, and
Mm-hmm.
the race is just starting. I think that's how it is starting. What is your opinion on, and this is a question which I ask a lot of people who are into gaming space and metaverse. Do we need more games, or do we need better hardware? If you have, let's say, 100 pounds, where would you put your money? And because adoption will come from both these things. So what is your view on this topic?
I mean, you've got enough games already that are pioneering in the space, certainly trial testing it out. What they're finding is they're not getting traction. And part of the reason they're not getting the great traction is because the technology and the hardware just isn't there to back them up. So, yes, we've got Apple that have come out with a new headset, and it is a lot better than the previous iterations of headsets that are out there. But I still don't think it's quite right or good enough yet for mass adoption. There's going to be further iterations, just like we saw with the smartphones when they first came out. With Apple came out with their phone, it was groundbreaking, but it took a little while before everybody started buying up smartphones. And I think you'll see the same with the metaverse space. Those goggles, I haven't tried the Apple ones yet because they've not been released, but from having used previous headsets, is that they're quite cumbersome, they're quite heavy on your face, and you can only tend to sort of be on them for a certain amount of time. Some people get motion sickness, is some of the feedback we've had. So these are all things that need to be overcome in order for mass adoption to sort of really sort of take on sort of the metaverse space. Or it needs to be more than just a visual sort of thing. If we can make the metaverse beyond the goggles and actually the technology is evolves beyond that, then I think we'll start to see. I don't think it's something that's going to happen over the next couple of years. I think it will be much more sort of medium to long term. We'll get mass adoption into that space. But anybody that's building in the metaverse right now will certainly be able to capitalize once the market and the technology is there to back it up. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I think Apple has certainly made the right strides in bringing their product out. And then the competitors are going to be playing catch up with them now and trying to bring out better and better products. But when you think about it, the less sort of cumbersome assets or products they have to put on their face or on their ears, the better. So really what we want to be getting to is a stage where they don't have to put a device on their face or their head, or they don't have to wear anything in order to be in the metaverse. And that's really where we want to be. And I think I'm just putting an idea out here. I mean, we're talking about having gaming hubs ourselves in years 4 and 5 of our business plan. And you could see potentially like cafes or gaming hubs being a place where people can actually jump into the metaverse, and there would be like a circle on the floor, an area on the floor where they can actually go into it and they don't need any of their goggles, and it's basically all holographic sort of imagery, and that would be a much better experience. But you'd need dedicated spaces for that, because not everybody's going to be able to necessarily have that in their home environment. So that could be something that we could see happen over the next few years, maybe. But yeah, there's a lot of technology innovation that needs to happen before mass adoption takes place.
Completely agree with you. I think there is a lot of time, and when the initial smartphones came in, I mean, if you look at those initial smartphones now, you'll probably laugh that this is what we used to use. But yes, they were. I mean, you have to start from somewhere, so that's perfectly fine. This cannot be just the end, or just the starting of your building. Talking about, so you spoke about in 8 bits plan also, you will eventually create certain gaming hubs where people can come and play. When you talk about, and I think you are at that bridge of both Web 2 gaming and Web 3, so you understand both the industries. When you talk to people from Web 2 who are hardcore gamers, what are their views about Web 3 gaming? Are they really taking it seriously, or do hardcore gamers actually want to shift to Web 3 gaming as well?
So it depends on which community you go into. I mean, if you go into Reddit's a great place for gamers, and if you go into there, the as soon as you mention anything to do with Web3, blockchain, cryptocurrency, the response you get is quite harsh. They're very anti blockchain and crypto, and I think a lot of the reason that traditional gamers don't like blockchain and blockchain gaming is partly because of the they're not aware of it, they're not educated enough, or they haven't tried it out. It's not knowing, basically, and what they read and what they see in the press out there is all negative, and they're regurgitating that negativity, basically, when they sort of give you feedback and you start asking them questions. If you run any polls or any questionnaires, the sort of feedback you get from them, and you read it and you think, well, I've read that somewhere in some press release. And I think that's one of the barriers, or one of the biggest barriers, is the negative press out there around the Web3 space is one of the biggest inhibitors in trying to get those Web2 gamers across. The second barrier, main barrier, is the technical knowledge needed to be in the Web3 gaming space. You've got to understand blockchain. You've got to understand how to have a wallet or set up a wallet, all the different blockchains that are on there, and how you need to sort of load them up onto your wallet. The difference between a token and a coin, your security tokens, your governance tokens. It's, unless you're really immersed in the space, it's overcomplicated. It's unnecessary for a Web2 user to know all this stuff. So they would have to spend a huge amount of their own time just educating themselves in order to get into this space as it is right now. So that's probably the second biggest obstacle, I think, trying to onboard these people. And the third obstacle actually comes the other way. It's that the Web3 adopters and developers in this space just aren't doing a good enough job right now to try and get the Web2 users on board. And there's so many different tools, especially I've noticed this last year coming out now, that are enabling to onboard Web2 users seamlessly. And we're implementing one of these on our platform. And effectively, if a Web2 or traditional gamer comes to our platform, they will not notice any difference to any sort of traditional gaming platform. They can sign up with their Google account or their Facebook account. They don't need to know how to interact with a crypto wallet. So that is all done seamlessly in the background for them. Now, they will still have non-custodial ownership of any assets they hold in that particular wallet that is assigned to them. And they can come back and if they lose that wallet, as long as they've got their Google login or their Facebook login, they can regain access to it. So there is always backups there. So in essence, it's all about trying to make it as easy as possible for Web2 users to be on board into the Web3 space. Do we need to educate them? Yes, but not necessarily. I think at the end of the day, like most people, or human beings, we are lazy, unless we really want something and we research and do the homework on it. So we have to make it easy enough for them that they don't need to sort of learn how blockchain works in order to use it. And that's the place where we need to be, really. And if they want to do a little research and some education, then there's plenty of tools out there that we can sort of help them or show them and point them in the right direction. So that's what we're trying to do. I think that's what the space needs. And we're starting to see more and more projects adopt that way of thinking. We need to get 95% of the traditional gamers into the Web3 space. And the only way we're going to do that is by making it seamless and easy for them to be onboarded. And that's probably one of the main and biggest obstacles. And then there are a few other things. It's about community and communication as well. And like we've touched on education as well. That's another area that we need to sort of expand on and show them. But until legislators out there and organizations are starting to be seen to adopt blockchain technology, then I think the masses are going to be reluctant to want to get into this, certainly into this space. But we're starting to see, certainly in some jurisdictions around the world that are quite crypto friendly, it's very encouraging. I have no doubt that the Americans will eventually come on board and stop bashing the crypto space. They're going to get left behind if they don't. And so once they do, we will start to see more and more mass adoption come into the gaming and the Web3 space.
Since we also spoke about geography, so what are, I mean, in your understanding, which are the hardcore gaming geographies, and what are their governments doing? So, I mean, are they adopting towards Web3? Are they moving towards Web3 and crypto adoption as well? Because what in my persona, for me, a gamer is of a persona who is somebody who understands technology quite well as compared to somebody else. But if you're saying that there are still there are a lot of challenges in which they have to convert from one to MetaMask, and probably they are gamers and they just want to focus on their core skill set of gaming and let other people handle everything. So what is your view on that?
So that's a really interesting question, and you can really dive into this with quite some depth. So when we're talking about geographies, there you can't help but attach economics to it, and developing countries and wealthy countries, and everybody, all those demographics are so different. So if I was to break it down a little bit, what we find is that in poorer countries or developing nations, the people that play games are playing games because they want to earn money. They want to earn because they want to earn a living. That it's their jobs. To get jobs out there is very hard. I mean, if you would take the Philippines, for example, where Axie Infinity was very, very popular, it was very popular because people were earning good money from it. People that probably wouldn't have had a job prior to that. So it's a source of income for them. It's a means for them to buy food and put food on the table and feed the family. And we're starting to see the same sort of pattern emerge in Africa, Nigeria especially. There's a big sort of community of Web3 adopters there. Now, although they've not had a great deal of access to gaming, now that gaming is becoming more and more mobile friendly, or more and more mobile agnostic, we are starting to see more of them experience gaming for the first time, and they're combining that with blockchain technology or being in the Web3 space. So we are seeing some of them there, and that is a growing. The same with India as well, I think. So these countries basically where there is a lot of unemployment, where people need to find a way to put food on the table, and they're seeing this as an easy way for them to make money, basically in a decentralized fashion. So that demographic there is very different to the demographic we see in North America and Europe, where employment, historically speaking, is quite high. People don't need to play games to earn money. They play games because they enjoy games. So that demographic is completely different, and the type of games that they play are completely different. Now, like I said, it's a very complicated and in-depth sort of question to try and answer. So trying to come back to it is that people in the Web3 space right now is very mixed. You've got a lot of opportunists, people that want to make a quick buck. And that's kind of what a lot of the space is all about. It's about actually making an investment and making a return on your investment, or making quick transactions and getting a return. Whereas in the Web2 space with gaming, it's all about, playing a game and you're immersing yourself into that space and you're holding on to it and you're buying into the storyline. And we are starting to see a little bit of a crossover now where games building in the Web3 space are actually thinking about the game first and building the game first. And that's important because you will bring in, your customer base from North America and Europe and some of the wealthier countries. And then they've got the blockchain integration around the back, where you're also facilitating, obviously, that customer bases in these developing nations as well, where they can potentially make some income from playing those games. So it's a really interesting space to be in right now. And yes, it's a very broad sort of demographic of different user bases, and you can certainly target them if you've got a particular game that you're developing. But us as a platform, we're very much focused on a broad sort of perspective. We're trying to sort of get as many people on board as possible. So that's really important. I think diving into sort of like the North American and European sort of customer base, they are in the Web3 space. A lot of them tend to be on the Ethereum platform blockchain. But having said that, the others are growing. Now, the ones that aren't in the Web3 space, that in the Web2 space, getting them on board is the difficult bit. And we've just sort of covered like the blockages or the stumbling blocks to do that. If we can overcome those, they will be playing those games that they buy into the storyline. All right. They're not going to be coming here to play to make, a few dollars here and there. That's not what they're going to be coming into the Web3 space for. So it's very different. But those people in the developing nations, if there's a game that they can play, like a casino game or some of the arcade games where you just have to play for a few minutes and you can possibly earn $1 or $2, those will very likely be very popular in those areas. So it's different games for different demographics for different regions.
Correct. I completely agree with you. And I think even because if you are playing for fun, the way you play, your style of playing, your time and commitment changes. Whereas if you're playing, I mean, as such, play to earn kind of game. So it's a different motivations also between these two.
Motivation is a very good word, actually,
Yeah,
Abhishek. It's all about the motivation of your end user. What is their main motivation? Is it to make a few dollars, or is it for the enjoyment of gaming? And if you can get to the crux of that and understand what it is, then you know what game and what demographic you need to be aiming for.
correct. So great, Russell. I think a lot of interesting understanding from today's talk of how Web3 gaming is developing, and I would like to see you and your team in next 5 years leading this change from Web 2 to Web 3, and you guys are doing a commendable job. And which we just talking before we started this session is that you are building up a tool. So just tell us about what is that tool, how it will seamlessly move Web 2 games to Web 3 games, how will it all function?
So we'll be an incubation process, and if we get a Web2 game developer that comes to us, obviously we'll go for an assessment phase with them, and it's just trying to find out at what stage of development they are. We would never turn around and say to anybody, "Look, we're not interested in having you on our platform." We'll have any game, to be honest, as long as there is they're showcasing the potential of their game, and that there's a likability factor about it. So what we'd say to anyone, and I'll touch on this quickly, is there's 5 key areas that any game in the Web 2 or Web 3 space needs to be focusing on, and that is define your concept first. First and foremost, that is so important, yeah, and that gets forgotten, and we've seen a lot of projects get that wrong in the Web3 space, and they don't last very long. So get your concept right and design the user interface, or the front line basically, or the front end of your game first, so that you've actually got something to show people. And then the third thing you need to be doing is building your community. Now, in the Web3 space, that is more important than in the Web2 space, for the simple reason that your survivability, or the potential of you getting to market, is extremely important in you being able to build up your community, because you might be relying on the launch of a token or some NFT collection that are part of your game in order for you to generate some capital. So that's extremely important. It could be that building up your community might be one of the first things you do. It all depends on the particular project and what it is you're trying to achieve and how it works. And then obviously, if you want a blockchain integration, you need to start thinking about the mechanics of how that's going to work into your game after you've designed the storyline. The storyline has to always come first. There's no point thinking like, I want to build a game based on a token, because we've been there, we've done it, and there's so many of them have failed. It just doesn't work. We do not want to build pyramid schemes anymore. Now, you have to build a sustainable economy that works on a game that people buy into the storyline and they would get invested. And that's what it has to be about. And then one of the other is implementing the interactions as well, and finding somewhere that you can save your assets in the cloud. That's quite important as well, but that comes at a later stage. So these are all sorts of things that we can our platform can help people with our various partners that we've got, whether that's from a technical point of view, whether it's marketing and integrating with other communities and things like that. So where we're going to be in the next 5 years is we're going to take it all over in the Web3 space, Abhishek. We're going to be the go-to gaming platform.
I wish you all the best in this. It's a huge mission, and I'm sure with the commitment which you guys are working, you'll be able to achieve that. And we are always there to support you and to cheer for you once this whole environment moves from here to there. And
Yep.
thank you for coming on this session and sharing your interesting insights. And wishing you all the best for future as well.
Thank you very much, Abhishek. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having us.